The story you were taught about where pasta comes from is written by an American noodle company in 1929, and it's still in your textbooks today. Everything you learned about pasta is wrong. Historians say Marco Polo did not bring pasta to Italy. In the next few minutes, you'll meet the merchants who actually built the pasta trade and got erased from the story for it. You'll see the moment a European empire tried to legally kill off the most popular dish in his own country, and you'll find out why the company that invented the Marco Polo myth needed you to believe it and what they were really selling. None of this made it into the version you grew up with. Here's the version most people know. Marco Polo travels to China in the 1200s, discovers noodles, brings the idea home, and Italy invents pasta as we know it. It's a great story. It's also, according to historians, completely fabricated. Pasta was already a thriving industry in Sicily over a century before Marco Polo ever left Venice. In 1154, an Arab geographer named al-Idrisi documented a town outside Palermo producing massive quantities of a dried noodle called Itria, exported by the shipload across the Mediterranean. Reportedly, this wasn't some experimental kitchen trick, it was an export economy. So if it wasn't Marco Polo, who was it? The honest answer is messier than any single hero. Historians still debate who invented the first noodle. But one thing is clear, the breakthrough wasn't the noodle, it was learning to dry it. Tracing back to the ancient Etruscans and Greeks, centuries before Rome existed. Others point to Arab innovators in Sicily who solved the one problem that had nothing to do with flavor. How do you make a noodle survive a 6-month sea voyage without rotting? That drying technique is the actual invention, not the noodle itself. Noodles existed independently in multiple cultures, but a dried, durable version that could be packed onto ships and survive the trip. That's what turned a regional dish into a Mediterranean commodity. And the people credited with solving it weren't Italian chefs. They were Arab traders working in Sicily, in a chapter most pasta origin stories skip entirely. So why does almost nobody know this? The answer involves a magazine nobody reads anymore, and a sailor who historians say never existed. In 1929, a U.S. trade publication called the Macaroni Journal, the official magazine of the American pasta industry, ran a short, charming article. It told the story of a sailor on Marco Polo's crew, conveniently named Spaghetti, who supposedly brought noodles back from China. It read like folklore. It was printed like fact. Pasta sales in America at the time needed a story. An exotic, adventurous one, something more marketable than "this is a peasant food from Sicily." A swashbuckling explorer made for better advertising than a Sicilian dock worker ever could. So the industry built one, and it worked exactly as intended. A 1938 Hollywood film cemented it further, dramatizing Marco Polo bringing noodles home to Venice for the first time. By the time American schoolchildren were learning world history a generation later, the marketing copy had become the textbook answer. The merchants of Sicily, the ones who'd actually built the trade, never got the credit. They didn't have a magazine, they didn't have a movie, they just had the historical record, and apparently that wasn't enough. What those Sicilian traders were drying on rooftops in the 1100s looked almost nothing like what's in your pantry right now. Their pasta was coarse, often irregular, made from whatever durum wheat the region produced that season, and dried slowly in open air for days. There was no sauce as you'd recognize it. Tomatoes hadn't even reached Europe yet. Early pasta was eaten plain, or with cheese, or dropped into broth. Compare that to what reaches your plate today. Uniform, machine extruded, bronze cut or Teflon cut depending on the brand, boxed in 11 minutes flat, and almost always paired with a tomato sauce that didn't exist in Italian cooking until the 1700s, centuries after pasta was already an established trade good. So would a 12th century Sicilian merchant recognize the bowl in front of you tonight? Probably the shape, almost nothing else. Here's where it gets stranger than a marketing myth. In 1930, a European government quietly tried to make pasta unfashionable enough to disappear. The Italian government under Benito Mussolini, looking to cut Italy's dependence on imported wheat, began promoting rice as the patriotic alternative, even creating a national holiday for it. A writer and political ally of the regime, Filippo Tommaso Marinetti, went further. He published a formal manifesto declaring pasta an absurd Italian gastronomic religion and called for it to be abolished outright, claiming it made people slow and mind weak. This is the real reason behind the propaganda. It was never really about nutrition. It was about control, making citizens dependent on a crop the state could manage, and erasing a food tied to regional identity and the working poor. It didn't work. Southern Italy, where pasta was a daily staple for generations, reportedly resisted the rice campaign almost entirely. Mussolini himself was, according to multiple accounts, eating a plain plate of pasta on the day he was finally removed from power. And here's the part nobody puts on the menu. Pasta didn't just survive that propaganda war, it became the symbol used against the regime that tried to kill it. When the government eventually collapsed in Italy, communities began holding public pasta dinners, pasta sciutta antifascista, specifically on the anniversary of the regime's fall. The dish that a dictator's propaganda machine spent years trying to discredit became, for the people who lived through it, a dish of memory and defiance. Some of those dinners reportedly still happen today. So the food you were taught came from a wandering explorer's travel diary actually survived a government trying to erase it and outlived the people who tried. Next time you're twirling a fork through a plate of spaghetti on a random Tuesday night, you're not just eating dinner, you're eating something that outlasted a marketing lie and an attempted ban. If that changes how you look at your next plate, you're exactly who this channel is for. Hit subscribe, because every dish has a version of this story underneath it. Tell me the dish you grew up eating that you just found out has a hidden history like this one. I'll feature the best answer in a future video.